Hey everybody, welcome to Mike's Total Dragon channel. My name is Mike, and today we are going to not be talking about the dragon. We are going to be talking about Transformers. Now, Skybound, who currently has the license for Transformers, recently did a facsimile edition of the very first Transformers comic that was published by Marvel in the early 1980s. And we're going to thumb through it kind of quick. So talk a little bit about it, not terribly much, because who doesn't know Transformers lore? Who doesn't know the story about the Transformers, Autobots versus Decepticons, waged an eternal war, etc., etc. So we'll go ahead and hop right into it. So as you'll see right now, it's initially pitched as first issue in a 4-issue limited series. We've got the Bill Sienkiewicz cover right here on the front. And we'll see in the credits, we've got Marvel licensed writer extraordinaire, Bill Mantlo. It seems like whenever there was a licensed property, he was the go-to guy to write that. One thing about the Transformers comic book is they had a kind of rotating cast of writers to start it off with. I think in the first 4 issues, they had 3 separate writers. Now this comic is definitely from a past generation. This is an older comic. I read it earlier today, and it took me 20 minutes to read the whole thing. There's so many words. And books back then, it was very heavy on the dialogue, on the panel description, a lot of exposition, people talking about what they're seeing, what they're doing, what they're thinking. As you see here is the first appearance at Megatron. But this book is definitely of an age in which, you know, it was, I always like the joke that people were paid by the word back then. And reading it now, basically 40 years later, it really is kind of jarring to read. If you were somebody who just got into comics, here's first Optimus Prime right here, first on-panel appearance. If you just got into comics, you would pick this book up and you would say, my God, I can't believe they expect me to read this much. But that's how it was back then, you know. Going back here to the credits, you'll see Bob Budiansky was original series editor. Now, he ultimately ended up being the writer that they settled on, and he would write the majority of the issues until towards the end, when he was just burnt out. Simon Furman came on, and he had experience writing Transformers in the UK, and he came over and he picked up the pencil on Transformers, and he plotted it, and he made it a lot more, I don't want to say serious book, because I feel like that kind of undermines what Bob Budiansky did. But Bob Budiansky, when he wrote Transformers, he often mentioned that it was a challenge for him because he was basically a slave to what Hasbro wanted to do. You want to get new toys in? Okay, well, we can bring new figures in and new characters, but you got to get rid of the rest. So you basically had to clear the deck to introduce new characters, and that really would kind of break up any sort of storytelling that Budiansky had going, just to introduce toys and characters whose figures were hitting the shelves soon. All this is stuff that pretty much everybody knows right here. The Transformers and the Decepticons engaging in an outer space battle while they're on the Ark, and the Ark crash lands on Earth, sits for millions and millions of years until a dormant volcano wakes it. They send out the sensor probe that scans the jets and cars that are on the highway to give the Transformers their alt modes. Flipping back here to the front of the page, you'll see that it was initially offered as a 4-issue miniseries. Now, it ran for, let's see, I want to say it was maybe like 70 or 80 issues for Marvel. And then it was brought back as Generation 2. And then, after Generation 2 ended, IDW picked it up as Transformers and kept the numbering going from the original G1. It was called Transformers Regeneration, and it kept the numbering and basically ignored everything that G2 did in the book and picked up in the last issue of the Marvel run and explored it from there. Now, when I talk about books being of a certain time and era, this right here is what I'm talking about. Every Decepticon is introducing themselves and talking about what their powers and abilities are to a T. Every single one of them is just basically talking to themselves. Like, if you're Thundercracker or Starscream, how do you not know what your fellow Decepticon does? So it's just so much exposition right here, and it's just dialogue, 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 dialogue. And don't think it is just a Decepticon thing. Boom. Autobots, guilty of the same stuff. This is basically like the roll call where everyone gives their name and what their weapon is they used to fight with. Then we take place. Then we introduce our human characters, which in the cartoon, it was Spike Witwicky. Here, his name is Buster. And as you kind of see through the dialogue, Buster and his dad, they're two different types of people. Spike's kind of like a dreamer, wants to go to college. His dad's like a blue-collar type dude. The Autobots are out, want to investigate the new world they're on. They go to a drive-thru, and they think all the cars at the drive-thru are actually the inhabitants of Earth. Meanwhile, Laserbeak has peeked them out. Spike and his girlfriend and their third wheel are in the car. Spike has no class. He's making out with this girl while his homeboy's sitting in the back seat or whatever. This is hilarious right here. Apparently Spike's buddy, his name is O. So they put like quotation marks around O to let us know as the reader that that's who he's talking to. The Decepticons have engaged war on the Autobots. And then meanwhile, people are running, screaming. There's Ravage, who seems to have a lot more intelligence than what's shown on the cartoon. He actually even has thought balloons. Buster hops into Bumblebee. Drives Bumblebee away, and then Bumblebee at the very end of it speaks to him. Coming up next issue, hey buddy, can you spare some fuel? That sounds like something from Rocky and Bullwinkle. They would give you a next episode, and then you would say, next episode, blah, 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 blah. Or, hey buddy, can you spare some fuel? But that was just a real quick breakdown of the first issue of the Transformers comic. One of the fun things about Transformers and Marvel is Jim Shooter, and you can find this online. He basically pitched out the entire lore for the Transformers. You know, the robotic planet Cybertron, the heroic Autobots, the evil Decepticons. Prime is the leader. Starscream is the backstabber. Shooter pitched all that, and Bob Budiansky, he wrote the cards for the back of the Transformers figures, I believe. So, much like how Larry Hama sculpted the G.I. Joe franchise, Bob Budiansky is responsible for a lot of the personalities and concepts for the Transformers. But from everything I've heard, Budiansky had a harder time with Hasbro or Mattel or whoever had Transformers at the time, and kind of bent over backwards to really appease them, more so than what Hama did on G.I. Joe. And that is probably why you have maybe not as great a quality of story with Transformers as you have with Joe. Probably also part of that is Hama's probably maybe a stronger writer. And also Hama was a military veteran. So who better to write about a military book than somebody who actually did serve and can kind of give it those touches that makes it stand out. While Bob Budiansky was not a robot, nor could he transform into a car. So that kind of hamstrung him a little bit on being able to write about how great the Transformers are. But initially started out as a 4-issue miniseries, and sales were so good on it, they decided to keep it going after issue 4. I always thought this guy right here, I always thought he looked like, oh my God, what's my man's name? He did all the Cannon movies where he was a vigilante, Charles Bronson. I always thought this cat here looked like Charles Bronson. No, but that's just a quick breakdown on Transformers. I grabbed this issue out of a stack I had, and I just want to do a quick review on it. So that is everything. If you guys get a chance, I highly recommend the Skybound Energon universe, where they're doing Transformers right now, and also Joe. Both of them are really respectful of the properties and very much a step up from the original series here of Transformers while staying true to the characters and their origins. But that's it for now. Everyone have a good day, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.